Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we are doing an army tour of one of my newer Age of Sigmar armies, the Skaven. I'm just going to kind of break down and show you guys a little bit of this army and give you guys kind of a tour of how I've put them together, which guys I've chosen, and talk a little bit about them. And, you know, maybe I'll do these for some more of the different factions. I don't have that many armies, but I've been trying to do a little bit more Warhammer Age of Sigmar content. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Plus, we're still doing 12 Days of Life Day. If you want to have a chance to enter or win any of those giveaways, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. Let's go ahead and jump in a little closer. So to start off, we're going to start off with clan rats here. Now this is kind of like your basic infantry and I'm starting off with this stuff that came in the Skaventide Box Set. These guys are there's 40 of them in a single unit, right? They're kind of crazy. Or is it 20? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 40 of them in the Skaventide box. So they run like 20 to a unit, which is a lot of miniatures for a single unit. And I decided to go with kind of yellow clothing with sort of green metallic armor. And I decided that was going to be kind of like the color scheme for my Skaven as a whole. There are 2 units of these guys. I have the other guys on kind of perched up on, behind the rest of the army on various pieces of like Monster Fight Club terrain, like so. But yeah, so this is just one of the 2 units that come in the Skaventide Box Set. We'll look at the rest of the stuff from the Skaventide Box Set. Next up is the Claw Lord on the Gnaw Beast. This guy is a really cool sculpt. He was pretty fun to paint. I had a lot of fun with this guy. He's not the most combat effective unit. I mean, he's decent. He kind of has this mechanic where if you wound him, he gets a little stronger. So like my opponents usually don't ever mess with him until they're ready to just one-shot him. So he doesn't just take a little bit of damage. But he is a pretty good starter leader, starter general, and he has a pretty cool base that was kind of built in with sort of that ooze kind of stuff, that magical ooze scry stuff that is coming up from the ground. So I liked him, and he's a mounted guy as well. Next up, it's the Gray Seer. Now this guy is your starter wizard in the Skaventide box. This is, I guess, a new sculpt of an existing Gray Seer. Now this was my first entry into the Skaven or any faction outside of the Stormcast Eternals, but he's pretty cool. And he's fun wizard too. There's a lot of randomness to this army that, like, if you happen to roll a certain number when you're casting with him, it's an automatic success, but he also takes D3 damage, which is really fun. But he's a pretty good wizard, and it's a really great sculpt where he's just kind of leaning forward into the wind. It's pretty awesome. Next up, we have the Rattling Warp Blaster. This is like your big gun that comes in the Skaventide box set. This one was fun, although I went with a different direction on this one. I decided to add some pink metal to this one. I just wanted to see how it would turn out. Was not my favorite, but I mean, I don't think it's terrible. It's just, it doesn't really mesh with the green, so I put some green armor also but I kind of committed to the pink, so I went all in with the pink. And the cool, I'm going to show you guys a little tip. One of the things I do is I have this chrome pen, and I write the name of guys on the bottom of the miniatures, so this way I can remember who's who. This is especially helpful when you're starting a new army and you have a lot of dudes, little rats that look kind of similar. It'll kind of help you. Granted, this guy doesn't look super similar, but you know, some of the other characters might be confusing. Next up is the Warplok Jezzails. These guys are really interesting to me. They're kind of like, they're snipers. They get bonuses if they don't move. They also get bonuses if they're close to some of the other folks, like the engineer we're going to see. But yeah, they can do some interesting stuff. They can ignore some of the defensive benefits that heroes can get. And one of the things that's surprising about them is they have some of the best defense in the Skaventide box set because of this little guy on the front that is holding the shield here. So if they get charged, usually you kind of want to have them in your back line, but if somebody charges in from behind and attacks your kind of rear long-range snipers, they can actually survive well. And I have done really well with them by having these guys charge objectives at the last minute and manage to kind of secure a point, and they have just enough survivability that you give them an all-out defense, and all of a sudden they become tough to kill, which I really like about them. So they're kind of a surprise success in this army. Next, we have our Warlock Engineer. He's another one of those hero types. He's a little bit of a sniper hero. He gives bonuses to other ranged units. I think the Jezzails get a bonus from him, and he also has a pretty decent sniper shot. But he's not like stupendous. He's just kind of a nice bonus to have, and a moderately effective sniper for a single miniature. Next up is the Rat Ogres. I think this is the final unit type from the Skaventide Box Set. These guys are very fun. They're kind of a blend. They're a melee unit for the most part, but they do have the one guy that's got the really good gun, and it's a medium range gun. It's not super great, but they're charging in. You don't want them too far away anyway. They're charging in, and as they're making the approach, you can get some shots in. Which is always nice before they're actually ready to charge. These guys definitely want to be in combat. They're a Moulder, which is more like a big oafish, like the big brooding guys, the Frankenstein kind of rats that have been sewn together and pumped full of steroids and chemicals and stuff like that. So that's why I put some chemical stuff on their bases. I really like the way these guys turned out. They are super groovy looking, and I think the paint job on them came out really, really well. So these are some of the units that I'm more happy with how they turned out. So they are, and I also really like to use them. They made me like Moulders, and they made me want to get more Moulders. So let's look at what I ended up picking up after these guys. So next up is the Storm Fiends. Now these guys are even bigger and broodier than the Rat Ogres. They're awesome. They're actually really awesome. They have some very cool mechanics. This is one of my favorite units in the game. They have a little brain rat that's on the back that helps control them because there's too much body for their tiny rat brain to control, so they need help, which is fun. One of the things I did not like about these initially is that it was very confusing. They were like, oh, here's the different guns, because there's like 6 different ways to build one of these. They have, but you can only build 3, so you have to pick which kind of weapons, what kind of weapon profile you're going to put on them. And I had to guess that this was like a grinder or as something, the tunneling guy that can start underground and then tunnel up somewhere. And it wasn't until, I think, the 4th edition, the Battle Tome, when that came out, it actually showed pictures of what weapons were what. And it turned out I had picked the right guns to put on these guys, or the right weapon profiles. We've got a pretty decent ranged option here as well. He's got a good ranged attack, and then this guy is totally all about randomly. He rolls a lot of dice. It's random how many dice he's going to roll, and some of his dice can multiply into doubles and stuff like that. So he can do crazy stuff. Although I think I did break off. I did break one of his little bits right there. So I've got to see what I can do to try to fix that tube. But yes, I really do like these guys. They're pretty fun, and they're still in the green and orange color scheme for the most part. When new stuff started coming out, I did pick up quite a few Skaven to augment the army, because I was using like a proxy giant from the Regiments of Renown, I wanted to have a little more a full Skaven army. So I went with a Master Moulder. This was I think a reprint or a refresh, and he gives Moulder type units some really cool bonuses. And and he's okay on his own, but he's really there to support the Moulder type units, and which counts as the Rat Ogres, and of course those Storm Fiends. But I did get one more Moulder to round it out. The Brood Terror here is a massive Moulder guy. He's at the time of me getting him, he was the biggest guy I've had. Comparing him to like the Rat Ogres and stuff, he's very, very big. And he's also pretty incredible. He has all the classic monster traits of doing nasty stuff and stopping your opponents from hitting as hard. He can heal, and with the Master Moulder can heal him even more. But he's a terrible force to be reckoned with, and he can kind of take on a whole subsection of your opponent's army all by himself. And I love him. So he's a beautiful cornerstone centerpiece to any Moulder focused army, I think, which is fun. I also did add a couple of extra ranged units. The Globadiers, I picked them up just because I thought they looked really cool, especially this guy who's like, his pose is he's actually like throwing little globe of energy, like the little grenade. They're kind of like grenadiers basically, but they're throwing these little globes of this Skyer energy, and they're a whole different type. The Skyer type, I think that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, but they're a small unit of 5. It was a lot easier to put them together. They have their canisters of goo on their back, and they're short ranged attackers, but they can potentially do a lot of damage, especially if it's to a unit that has a lot of miniatures in it. And I augmented, because again, I had, between the big blaster and then the Giselles and then the sniper, I had some ranged units already, and so I wanted to add the what is this guy, the Arch Warlock? Yeah, I wanted to add the Arch Warlock in here as well, to help out my ranged units. He gives a really cool bonus where you get to kind of shoot during your opponent's turn for free without having to spend a command point, which is kind of a big deal. So this kind of rounds out like my Skaven a little bit. Now I've got a moderate amount of melee, I've got a moderate amount of ranged, and enough that I can, like, not all of my lists are going to be the same. So, you know, without trying to min-max on any one area, I wanted to have a little bit of, you know, depth in both melee and range, and in magic. And that just left one more guy that I needed to pick up. Vizek Scour, the horned prophet, which this is not a good enough angle. He's massively huge. Let's get a better angle on him. All right, that's kind of a better look at this massive dude. He was fun. He was a fun one to paint. I gave him a different color scheme. He doesn't have the orange cloth on because, well, he's kind of like the prophet in charge of all these guys. Like, he's definitely the boss of everybody on this table. And he picks his own color scheme. You know, he's leading, he's like, rank has its privileges, and I'm not wearing that dreadful orange. I'm wearing whatever I want. So I thought that was a fun one for this guy. And also, when I was painting him, I forgot that I was using orange because I painted him last. And so, yeah, that was like partial, like, I want to pick a different color scheme for this guy. And also, that's my excuse because I forgot that I was going with orange. So, you know, that's how it goes sometimes. But I did get some of the green metal in there as well. He also came with a lot of extra rats that you could use for basing materials, and I didn't use those for them. I saved them, and so I just want to have a bunch of extra little rats as basing materials for something else in the future potentially. So because he's already got so many rats all over his, you know, like on his head, and like they're in love with him. They're all over the place. They're just like, feed me, Seymour. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. And, of course, we have the gnaw holes, which are the faction terrain for the Skaven. These are very, very hard to find. I had to get these off of eBay since they have been out of stock for forever. Now, I did build these a little differently. They normally were these portals that had a whole bunch of wood, like all this wooden kind of building material, all this kind of apparatus on top, like as if they were trying to, you know, build a, I don't know, dig, or there was like mining equipment or something like that in here. And I did not want all these pieces of wood. For one, it was a lot more complicated to put them all together. It was going to be a lot more wood to paint. And the other reason is really storage. When faction terrain is only like, you know, 1.5 inches tall, it's easier to slide it into, you know, a shelf compartment. Then when it's like 5 inches tall, because of all these little spiky bits coming off of it, then it's a lot harder to store. So I trimmed all of my little wood pieces. I still kept it on there so you could still sell that it was there, but I modified each one of these because I didn't want them to have those tall bits. Now, if you are playing Skaven and you're like me and couldn't find these guys for a while, I also made my own before I could get them, so I could still practice with them before they showed up. I made them out of like foam, and I just cut. I found the sort of the silhouette, and I printed them out and cut them, and I think I got them pretty close. You know, I got them within like 1 millimeter or 2 of the actual piece, so that was pretty cool. But it was blue foam. I put a Keyforge card because I cut a hole out and I filled it in with like some paint and then some resin and stuff like that, and I made like 3 of these. So yeah, they look like green buttholes. They're kind of silly, but then I was able to get these, so I wanted to use the official stuff. You know, proxying is fine as long as it's, you know, for me, it's good for like a test until I have the opportunity to get the real thing. And that is the Skaven Army. That's kind of a look at the whole gang. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you want to see more of these? I've got Stormcast, and I've also got some Ogre Maw tribes that are largely incomplete, but I'd love to showcase them if you guys are interested in seeing more Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And hopefully you guys are having a wonderful holiday season. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are out of this world and help make this whole channel possible. Thank you so much for your continued support. I will talk to you later. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. The spice must flow. So say we all. You can't take the sky from me. And always wash your socks.